He said, "You're beautiful," and the alien woman realized everything had changed. Inside, the crew moved with purpose, their steps echoing softly in the corridors. Humans were not the strongest or the most technologically advanced species in the known galaxy, but they had something unique: curiosity and a determination to understand, rather than conquer. Lieutenant Alex Harper stood by the observation deck, staring at the endless stretch of stars. To him, space was more than just empty darkness. It was alive with possibility. Each light, each planet, hinted at mysteries waiting to be understood. Alex was a linguist, trained to bridge worlds with words. Today, he felt a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. Their mission was simple in description but profound in consequence. Humanity was finally meeting one of the galaxy's oldest civilizations, the Ithurians. The Ithurians were known for their beauty, elegance, and a strict adherence to social rules. Their culture valued restraint and control above all else. Words were carefully measured, and emotions were rarely shown openly. To speak freely or sincerely could be considered offensive or dangerous. Humanity, by contrast, was messy and spontaneous, guided by feeling as much as by reason. The docking process at the Ithurian trade station was smooth. The station itself was a vast construction of silver and crystal-like panels, glowing softly with internal light. Ships from countless species hovered around it, each one a testament to the variety of life in the galaxy. As the humans entered the station, they were immediately aware of the difference in atmosphere. The Ithurians moved with slow, deliberate grace. Their eyes, large and luminous, studied the newcomers with both curiosity and caution. Among the Ithurians, a single figure drew Alex's attention instantly. She was tall, with a slender frame that moved like liquid light. Her skin shimmered with a soft, subtle hue, and her hair fell in waves that caught the station's glow. She observed the humans with an intensity that made Alex feel simultaneously nervous and inspired. Something in her gaze suggested intelligence far beyond human comprehension, yet there was a hint of curiosity, an openness that was rare in her people. The official welcome ceremony was formal and quiet. Words were exchanged carefully, with precise gestures and nods. The human ambassador, Commander Alina Torres, spoke with practiced diplomacy, ensuring that every phrase showed respect without appearing subservient. Alex followed her lead, translating and observing, noting every reaction, every subtle shift in the alien's expressions. It was during a moment of informal conversation, when most of the station's occupants were distracted by the arrival of trade ships, that Alex found himself standing near the alien woman. He had been assigned to assist with cultural exchange, explaining human customs and answering questions. She regarded him with a careful, almost clinical curiosity. Alex's heart pounded as he tried to find the right words. Humans often relied on sincerity, even in tense moments. The phrase formed naturally in his mind. Without thinking of protocol, without filtering it for safety or diplomacy, he said, "You're beautiful." The words hung in the air like a dropped crystal. The alien woman froze, her luminous eyes widening slightly. There was no shock, no anger, but a profound pause, as though the universe itself had shifted in that instant. For Ithurian, beauty was acknowledged only within strict bounds, rarely spoken aloud and never casually. To hear it from a human, so open, so uncalculated, was bewildering. "I thank you," she finally said, her voice a melodic series of tones that Alex could barely process. Her words were measured, careful, yet there was a tremor in them that betrayed her inner surprise. Alex felt a strange mixture of relief and excitement. He had not intended to start a revolution with a single sentence, only to speak honestly. Yet already, he could sense that the encounter had shifted something fundamental in the alien's perception. She looked at him with a new curiosity, an intensity that was difficult to describe. Over the following hours, Alex noticed subtle changes in her behavior. She lingered near the humans more than protocol allowed, observing their interactions with interest. She asked questions about mundane things, food, sleep, friendship, questions that revealed a growing fascination with human ways. To her people, these topics were trivial, almost meaningless. For humans, they were the foundation of life. As the day turned into night on the station, Alex and the alien woman found themselves alone in a small observation chamber. The station's artificial lighting created a soft glow, reflecting off the metal surfaces and casting long shadows. The stars beyond the station's viewport seemed impossibly close, filling the room with silent wonder. "I do not understand," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. "Why do humans speak so freely? Why do you say what you mean without concern for consequence?" Alex smiled gently. "We do not see speaking as dangerous. Words are our way of connecting. We believe that understanding comes when we share ourselves openly. It is not always perfect, and sometimes it causes pain, but it also allows growth." She considered his words carefully, tilting her head. In her culture, growth was achieved through control, through discipline, not through openness. Yet something in Alex's explanation resonated with her. She felt a stirring of something unfamiliar, hope, perhaps, or the possibility of change. The conversation continued for hours. Alex shared stories of Earth, of human history, of moments when honesty had altered the course of events. The alien woman listened intently, absorbing each word. She had spent centuries surrounded by rigid expectations and carefully structured hierarchies. Here, she encountered a species that thrived not by rules, but by courage and sincerity. As they spoke, Alex realized the enormity of what had occurred. One simple sentence, spoken without calculation or intent, had begun to unravel assumptions that had governed a civilization for centuries. He did not know the full impact of his words, nor could he predict how far-reaching the change might be. All he knew was that honesty, unfiltered and sincere, had power beyond anything he had imagined. The alien woman finally stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the endless expanse of stars. Alex followed, standing beside her in silence. The vast universe stretched before them, full of mysteries, challenges, and possibilities. For the first time, she considered that the universe might be more than a place to navigate with caution. It could be a place to explore, to experience, to feel. "You have shown me something unexpected," she said softly. "Perhaps humanity is not what I thought. Perhaps the universe has room for more than one way to live." Alex nodded, a quiet smile on his face. "There is always room. We only need the courage to speak and to listen." As the observation chamber filled with the gentle hum of the station, both human and alien stood in a shared silence. In that quiet moment, a bridge had been built, not of technology or treaties, but of understanding. One word had begun a transformation, and neither of them could foresee where it would lead. By the time the crew returned to their quarters, the alien woman was already thinking differently about her world. Rules and traditions still held sway over her daily life, but a seed had been planted. A single, honest expression of appreciation had shown her that connection and sincerity could be stronger than power or control. Alex, too, reflected on the encounter. He understood that humans were often underestimated in the galaxy. They were considered fragile, emotional, or even naive. Yet in this moment, he realized that humanity's greatest strength was precisely what others dismissed: the willingness to see value, to speak truth, and to risk the consequences of honesty. The first day on the Ithurian station ended quietly. Outside, stars continued their endless dance, indifferent to the dramas of smaller worlds. Yet within the walls of the station, a subtle change had begun. One alien woman, shaped by centuries of discipline, had glimpsed a new way to understand life. And one human, with nothing more than a single sentence, had set the stage for a story that would ripple across civilizations. As the station lights dimmed and sleep settled over the crew, both human and alien pondered the possibilities of what had begun. A universe of rules and boundaries could coexist with openness and courage. A species known for restraint could be influenced not by force, but by honesty. And in that quiet, unassuming moment, a new chapter of galactic history quietly began. The stars outside the viewport seemed to twinkle with promise. Somewhere in the vast expanse, other civilizations waited, unaware that a small act of sincerity could begin to reshape the galaxy. For the alien woman, the words "you're beautiful" would never be forgotten. They were more than a compliment. They were the key to a future she had not imagined, a doorway to understanding and change. And for Alex Harper, the words were just the beginning of what he hoped would be a long journey of connection, learning, and shared discovery. In the silence of space between star and ship, a bridge had been formed, fragile yet unbreakable, built not of steel or treaties, but of trust and truth. And neither of them would ever see the galaxy in the same way again. The alien woman, whose name was Lysara, spent the next days in quiet observation. She could not stop thinking about the human, Alex Harper, and the words he had spoken. "You're beautiful." Such a simple sentence, yet it carried a weight she had never experienced. In her society, compliments were carefully measured, layered with meaning, and often given only to secure alliances or demonstrate status. To hear it freely, without expectation, unsettled her in ways she could not explain. Lysara began paying close attention to the humans aboard the station. She observed them laughing together, sharing stories, helping one another without hesitation. They touched each other casually, on the shoulder, on the arm, gestures that carried warmth and care rather than command or obligation. The simplicity and honesty of these interactions were alien to her, yet strangely compelling. Humans did not seem to calculate every word or gesture. They acted with sincerity, even if it caused misunderstandings or danger. Alex noticed her observation. Each time their paths crossed, Lysara would be watching, not with hostility or judgment, but with curiosity. He did not feel threatened, nor did he feel the need to impress her. He simply existed as himself, sharing what he knew and learning what he could. Over time, a quiet trust began to form. One evening, Lysara approached Alex in the training hall. The room was large and open, filled with holographic displays of human and alien worlds. Alex was examining some translation scripts, adjusting syntax to better match Etherian vocal patterns. "I have been thinking about what you said," Lysara began, her voice calm yet tinged with uncertainty. "Why do humans speak without restraint? Do you not fear consequences?" Alex looked up and smiled. "Sometimes, yes, we do face consequences. But we believe honesty is worth the risk. Words can change minds, open doors, or even save lives. Holding them back may seem safe, but it can also prevent understanding." She considered his words carefully. In Etherian culture, actions were valued far more than words. Promises were binding, not statements of feeling. To speak freely was almost reckless, yet the humans seemed to thrive on it. "I do not understand," she admitted softly. "In my world, speaking without purpose is dangerous. It can be seen as disrespect, even rebellion. How can your people survive in a galaxy where others judge so harshly?" Alex leaned against the railing, gazing out at the stars beyond the station. "We survive because we try, because we trust each other, and because we believe that the universe is bigger than fear or tradition. We speak because silence can be just as harmful as a lie." Lysara remained silent, absorbing his perspective. She had spent centuries observing and participating in a culture that valued control above all else. Obedience was praised, questioning discouraged, and emotions were hidden behind carefully constructed masks. The concept that openness could be a strength was foreign to her. Over the next few days, Lysara began to test the boundaries of her own behavior. She asked questions about human life, some of them trivial, others deeply personal. She wanted to understand why humans valued honesty so highly, why they risked embarrassment and failure to connect with others. Each answer she received was a small revelation. Alex shared stories from Earth, tales of simple courage and everyday heroism. He spoke of people helping strangers, of communities supporting each other, of individuals taking responsibility for mistakes. The stories were not of great battles or political triumphs, but they carried a quiet power. Lysara realized that humans did not need control or fear to maintain order. They relied on trust, empathy, and shared understanding. One afternoon, a minor emergency shook the station. A small cargo module had malfunctioned, threatening to collide with the docking bay. Alarms blared and lights flashed red. Humans and aliens alike rushed to respond, but the human crew acted with remarkable efficiency. They communicated openly, offering guidance and encouragement without hierarchy. Each member contributed, not because they were ordered, but because they wanted to help. Lysara observed from a distance, amazed at their coordination. Her own people would have reacted with strict commands and rigid procedure, prioritizing protocol over initiative. Yet the humans' method, chaotic as it appeared, worked perfectly. The cargo module was secured, and no lives were lost. After the emergency, Lysara approached Alex once more. "Your people, they do not follow strict orders, yet they succeed. In my experience, that is impossible." Alex shrugged modestly. "We make mistakes, but we also learn from them. And we trust each other enough to act when needed. That is our strength." The words resonated with Lysara. She began to see her own society through a different lens. Centuries of rigid rules had created efficiency, but also stagnation. Innovation and adaptation were rare, discouraged by the constant fear of stepping out of line. Humans, by contrast, thrived on flexibility, on open communication, and on valuing individuals. As the days passed, Lysara found herself drawn into conversations she would have once avoided. She asked about human emotions, their concept of friendship, and even their humor. She was fascinated by the way humans found joy in small things, how they celebrated life despite danger or uncertainty. To her, this was not just curiosity, it was a revelation. One evening, Alex invited her to join a small group of humans sharing a meal in the station's common area. The room was simple, with tables and chairs arranged informally. The humans laughed, shared stories, and offered food to one another without ceremony. Lysara hesitated at first, unsure of how to participate. Yet when she tasted the simple dishes, prepared with care and shared freely, she felt a warmth she had never experienced. "You seem different here," Alex said gently, noticing her hesitation. "You are allowed to be yourself without masks or rules." Lysara considered this. In her society, every interaction carried hidden meaning. Every smile, every word was calculated. To act without strategy felt dangerous, yet liberating. She began to understand that the human's openness was not weakness, it was strength. Over the next weeks, Lysara continued her observations, increasingly aware of the subtle power humans possessed. She noticed how their presence affected other species on the station. Crew members from other civilizations, who were initially wary, began to mimic human behavior. Small acts of kindness, honest communication, and simple gestures of appreciation spread quietly, altering the social atmosphere. Lysara realized that humanity's influence was not through technology or force, but through example. Their willingness to connect, to share, and to act with sincerity had begun to change the dynamics of the station. Even those who had once dismissed humans as naive or weak began to respect them in new ways. One day, Lysara and Alex found themselves alone in the observation chamber again. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, and the quiet hum of the station surrounded them. "I have learned much from your people," Lysara admitted softly. I see now that strength is not always about control or command. Sometimes it is about courage, the courage to speak, to act, to trust. Alex smiled. That is something humans have learned too. We survive because we connect, because we care, and because we dare to be honest, even when it is difficult. She looked out at the stars, feeling a sense of awe and possibility. Perhaps there is more to the universe than I have been taught. Perhaps the galaxy can change, one honest word at a time. Alex placed a hand on the railing beside her, not touching her directly but in a gesture of shared presence. It always starts with one word, one action, one choice. Change does not happen all at once. It begins quietly and spreads. Lysara nodded, understanding the truth of his words. In her heart she felt the stirrings of something new, a hope that civilizations could evolve not through war or domination, but through trust, openness, and connection. She had never imagined such a thing possible, yet here it was, unfolding before her eyes. Over the following days, Lysara became more involved with the humans. She asked questions about their history, their art, their customs, and their ways of solving problems. Each interaction revealed a new layer of understanding, a perspective she had never considered. She began to share her own knowledge, cautiously at first, then more freely. Alex encouraged her, translating her words when needed and offering gentle guidance. Through these exchanges, Lysara realized that humans valued individuals in a way her society rarely did. They saw worth in each person's actions and choices, rather than in status or lineage. This recognition of inherent value was revolutionary to her. She began to wonder what her world could become if such principles were embraced. The bond between Alex and Lysara grew quietly, built on mutual respect and curiosity. There was no romantic notion in their connection, only a deep understanding of each other's perspectives. Lysara felt a freedom she had never known, and Alex found inspiration in her willingness to question and learn. One evening, as the station's artificial lights dimmed to mimic the approach of night, Lysara spoke again. I have spent centuries bound by rules and expectations. I have always believed that control is strength, but now I see that connection is strength too, and it can be far more powerful than I imagined. Alex nodded, feeling the truth of her words. Humans have always known that. We have our own rules, of course, but we believe in the power of honesty, trust, and care. It is not always easy, but it changes everything. Lysara looked out at the stars, feeling the weight of possibility. She understood now that one simple word, spoken without calculation, could open minds, change hearts, and inspire action. And she knew that the journey she had begun with the humans was only the first step in a much larger story, one that could shape not only her own life, but the future of her people and the galaxy itself. As she and Alex stood in the observation chamber, the stars reflected in their eyes, Lysara realized that the universe was no longer a place of rigid rules and predictable outcomes. It was a place of potential, waiting for those brave enough to speak, to act, and to connect. And humanity, with its simple courage and honesty, had shown her the way. The station was quiet now, filled with the soft hum of machinery and distant footsteps. Outside, the galaxy stretched endlessly, full of unknown worlds and uncharted possibilities. Lysara felt a sense of anticipation, knowing that the lessons she had learned from the humans were only the beginning. A new understanding had taken root within her, one that would grow and spread in ways she could not yet foresee. And as the stars twinkled silently beyond the viewport, Lysara understood that everything had changed, not because of force, not because of orders, but because one human had dared to speak the truth of his heart. The days following Lysara's growing understanding of humans were filled with subtle but profound changes across the Etherian station. Alex Harper and his crew continued their work, quietly observing, helping, and interacting with other species. But it was the ripple effect of their presence that began to stir the station in ways no one could have predicted. Lysara could sense it. Crew members from other civilizations started looking at humans differently. They spoke more openly, smiled more freely, and offered help without the formalities they had once insisted upon. Even young Ithurians, usually reserved and careful, began to mimic the human style of communication, sharing thoughts and small gestures without fear of judgment. The presence of the humans was changing them, slowly and quietly, in ways that Lysara had never imagined possible. She observed Alex leading a small team through the station's maintenance sector. The humans worked together without strict hierarchy, coordinating tasks through open communication and mutual respect. One human would suggest a solution, another would add to it, and a third would act, all without the need for commands or authority. The result was astonishing efficiency, yet it carried warmth and camaraderie that Lysara's people had never experienced. Later that day, she spoke with a senior Ithurian officer, Captain Malvek, in the council chamber. The room was vast and imposing, lined with holographic displays and ceremonial symbols of authority. "Have you noticed the changes among the younger crew?" Lysara asked carefully. "They are beginning to adopt behaviors I have never seen before." Malvek's expression was stern, though there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "Yes, I have observed it. Humans are peculiar. Their methods are chaotic yet effective. Their influence is spreading faster than expected." Lysara nodded. "It is not just effectiveness. It is trust, openness, and cooperation. They connect with others without expectation or hierarchy. This is something our society has never allowed." Malvek's eyes narrowed. "Such behavior is dangerous. It undermines control. It could destabilize generations of discipline. Yet, we cannot deny that the results are impressive. There is strength in what they do." Lysara felt a mixture of fear and excitement. The realization hit her. Humanity's impact went far beyond simple observation or diplomacy. They were changing her society by example. In the following days, Lysara continued to spend time with Alex and the human crew. They shared stories of human history, small acts of courage, and tales of perseverance. She listened with rapt attention, fascinated by the human capacity to endure, to adapt, and to support one another. Every story revealed a new aspect of strength she had never associated with beings so seemingly fragile. During a station-wide drill, a critical systems failure occurred. A massive energy conduit was about to overload, threatening to cripple the station. Panic rippled through the corridors as alarms blared and lights flashed red. The human crew moved swiftly, coordinating with the Ithurians and other species present. Alex gave clear, calm instructions, but he did not command. He suggested, guided, and encouraged. The humans acted on initiative, using their judgment and trusting one another completely. Lysara watched in amazement. The humans' openness allowed them to respond faster than any Ithurian protocol could have managed. Mistakes were quickly corrected, and the situation was contained before serious damage occurred. Several lives were saved, and the station remained intact. After the crisis, Lysara found herself walking beside Alex on the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, reflecting in the viewport like scattered jewels. "Your people, they have a strange way of surviving," she said quietly. "They do not rely on strict orders or control, yet they achieve results that my people would consider impossible." Alex shrugged, a faint smile on his face. "We rely on each other. We trust each other. That is more powerful than orders or regulations. Rules are necessary sometimes, but they are nothing without trust and communication." Lysara considered his words. She had grown up in a culture that prized control above all else. Decisions were made carefully, hierarchies were rigid, and deviation was punished. Yet the human strength did not come from control. It came from freedom, openness, and the courage to act. Over the next weeks, Lysara began to feel the pressure from her own society. Reports of her growing interactions with the humans reached the council. Some saw her behavior as subversive, a threat to the established order. She was summoned to answer for her actions, to explain why she spent so much time with the humans and why she seemed to adopt their ways. In the council chamber, Lysara stood before the elders. Their expressions were stern, their expectations clear. "You have spent time with the humans," one elder stated. "They are outsiders, unpredictable and dangerous to our order. Why have you allowed their influence to guide you?" Lysara met their gaze steadily. "I have learned from them," she said calmly. "Their methods are different, yes, but they have shown strength that we do not see in ourselves. Their openness, trust, and honesty have value. They have saved lives, prevented crises, and inspired cooperation." Another elder spoke sharply. "And what of our traditions, our rules? Do you intend to cast aside centuries of wisdom because of human ways?" Lysara's voice was firm. "I do not cast aside tradition. I only see that there is more to consider. Strength is not only in control but also in connection. There is a balance that can be achieved." The council was silent for a long moment. Some elders looked skeptical, others thoughtful. Lysara realized that the humans' influence was forcing even the most rigid minds to question long-held beliefs. Meanwhile, the station's younger crew members continued to be influenced quietly by the humans. They asked questions, shared ideas, and experimented with new ways of working together. Lysara noticed a subtle revolution taking place, a shift in attitudes, priorities, and behaviors. It was not violent nor loud, but it was unmistakable. One evening, Lysara found Alex in the training hall, working on a holographic map of the station's systems. She approached him cautiously. "Do you realize what is happening?" she asked. "Your presence is changing my people, even beyond what I can measure. The younger Etherians are beginning to adopt your ways. They communicate openly, they cooperate without orders, and they act with initiative. It is remarkable." Alex looked up, a thoughtful expression on his face. "I do not know if I realize it fully. Humans often make small changes without noticing, trusting that the effect will spread naturally. But it is good to know that it is happening." Lysara smiled faintly. "Good, yes, but also dangerous. Some of the elders see this as a threat. I have already faced questions, warnings, and scrutiny because of it. Your people do not understand the risk they carry simply by existing." Alex nodded slowly. "We accept that risk. Humans have always changed the worlds they touch, sometimes without meaning to. That is our way. We act with honesty, integrity, and courage. The consequences are part of the process." Lysara considered his words and felt both hope and fear. The humans were powerful in ways she had never imagined, yet their influence could disrupt centuries of tradition and stability. Change could be frightening, even dangerous, but it was inevitable once it began. In the following days, a new crisis emerged. A routine cargo shipment contained a volatile element that began leaking, threatening the station's integrity. Alarms blared and the crew scrambled to respond. Once again, the humans led the response, but this time the challenge was greater. Lysara observed their methods closely. Humans coordinated with all available personnel, prioritizing safety and communication. They acted decisively, improvising solutions when plans failed. Etherians, initially skeptical, were drawn into their approach, following their example rather than orders. The situation was resolved with minimal damage, and the potential disaster was averted. Afterward, Lysara approached Alex once more. "Your people, they have saved countless lives, and yet they do not seek recognition or power. They act because it is necessary, because it is right. That is something my people rarely understand." Alex's smile was quiet, almost humble. "We do not need recognition. We act because it matters. That is what defines us." Lysara realized that she had learned more than just methods or strategies. She had learned a philosophy, a way of seeing the world that valued courage, connection, and honesty over control and hierarchy. She began to wonder how her society might change if these ideas were embraced more widely. The ripple effect continued. Younger Ithurians began forming small groups to collaborate openly, sharing knowledge and insights without seeking permission. They discussed ideas, proposed improvements, and supported one another. Even some elders who had resisted initially began to see the value in these changes. Humanity's influence was spreading, not through force, but through example. Lysara knew that the transformation was just beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of civilizations steeped in tradition and control. Yet the human approach, simple, honest, and brave, had begun to show that there was another way to thrive. One that relied on trust, cooperation, and the courage to speak openly. One quiet evening, as the station settled into its artificial night cycle, Lysara reflected on everything she had seen. Humans were not perfect. They made mistakes, they argued, they struggled. But in their struggles, they revealed their strength. They showed that true power was not in domination or fear, but in connection, understanding, and courage. And as she gazed out at the endless stars, Lysara knew that the future of her people, and perhaps the galaxy, was already changing. One human, by simply being honest and sincere, had begun a transformation that would ripple outward in ways no one could yet imagine. The days on the Ithurian station had changed in ways that no one could ignore. The human crew, led by Alex Harper, had continued their quiet work of observation, cooperation, and connection. But their presence was no longer just a curiosity. It had become a catalyst for transformation. The younger Ithurians were adopting human behaviors, speaking openly, helping one another without hierarchy, and experimenting with ideas that had long been forbidden. Lysara walked through the corridors, observing the changes. There was a new energy, subtle yet undeniable. People smiled more freely, collaborated more willingly, and asked questions without fear. Even some elders who had been skeptical at first had begun to reconsider, quietly observing and learning from the humans' example. Yet not all responses were positive. Some in the council viewed the changes as dangerous. They whispered among themselves about the humans' influence, fearing it would weaken authority and disrupt the established order. These concerns were not dismissed lightly. Lysara knew that the future of her people depended on how this influence was managed and understood. One morning, the station received an urgent message. A nearby colony, isolated and technologically limited, had encountered a natural disaster. A massive storm system threatened to destroy infrastructure and endanger lives. The Ithurians were prepared to send a small relief team, but Alex saw an opportunity. "We should go with a full crew," he said, speaking to Lysara and several other humans. "We can help more people, and we can show how cooperation and trust can achieve what rules alone cannot." Lysara hesitated. In her society, rushing into a situation without permission or complete planning was reckless, but she had learned from the humans. She had seen the value of initiative, the courage to act in uncertainty, and the power of connecting openly with others. She nodded. "Then we will go," she said firmly. The journey to the colony was tense. The storm raged in unpredictable patterns and navigation was difficult. Yet the humans worked together seamlessly. Alex coordinated efforts but not with commands. He suggested, advised, and encouraged. Each crew member acted according to their judgment, trusting one another completely. Lysara watched in awe. The humans' trust and honesty created a unity that seemed impossible to teach or enforce. Upon reaching the colony, the team quickly assessed the damage. Buildings were flooded, energy systems failing, and inhabitants trapped in dangerous conditions. The human crew moved without hesitation, organizing rescue efforts, repairing critical systems, and calming terrified residents. The Ithurians on the team initially struggled with the lack of formal structure, but they soon adapted, inspired by the humans' example. Lysara found herself working alongside Alex in the center of the crisis. They coordinated the rescue of a group of children trapped in a damaged building. Alex guided her calmly, showing her when to act and when to let instinct take over. She realized that humans did not rely solely on rules. They relied on each other. That connection, that trust, allowed them to respond with speed and efficiency that rules alone could never achieve. By the end of the day, the colony was stabilized. Lives had been saved and property damage minimized. The Ithurian observers who had initially doubted the humans' methods were forced to acknowledge the results. They had witnessed the power of trust, honesty, and cooperation in action. During the return journey, Lysara and Alex spoke quietly in the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly before them, calm and indifferent to the events below. "Your people, they do more than survive," Lysara said softly. "They inspire change. They show that strength is not just in power or rules, but in connection and courage." Alex nodded. "That is what we have always known. Strength comes from the willingness to trust, to act, and to speak honestly. Sometimes it is slower, harder, and riskier, but it lasts longer than fear or control." Lysara considered his words. She had seen the impact firsthand. Humans did not force obedience, they inspired understanding. They did not seek power, they built trust. Their courage was simple but profound, and it had begun to change the Ithurians in ways she could never have imagined. Upon returning to the station, Lysara was summoned to the council chamber once again. This time the elders' expressions were not purely stern, they were a mixture of concern, curiosity, and tentative respect. "You have been to the colony," one elder said. "We have received reports. The humans' actions, they have saved lives. They have achieved results beyond expectation, yet we are uncertain. Are you advocating that our people adopt their ways?" Lysara met the gaze of each elder calmly. "I am not advocating. I am showing what is possible. The humans demonstrate that trust, openness, and cooperation can achieve what rules alone cannot. This is not a threat, but a lesson. We can choose to learn without abandoning our traditions." The council was silent. It was unusual for anyone to speak so boldly, and Lysara could feel the tension in the room. Yet something had shifted. The elders had witnessed undeniable results, and even the most rigid of them could not ignore the impact. Meanwhile, the station's younger generation continued to experiment and grow. They formed discussion groups, collaborative projects, and shared innovations freely. The presence of the humans had sparked a quiet revolution, a movement of understanding, courage, and open communication. Lysara walked through the corridors, observing the changes. Crew members worked together in new ways, offering guidance and support without hierarchy. Ithurian protocols were still in place, but they were being applied with flexibility and thought, not rigid obedience. The station felt alive in a way it had never before. One evening, Alex and Lysara found themselves alone in the observation chamber once more. The stars beyond the viewport seemed closer than ever, glowing softly in the artificial lighting of the station. "Do you realize what has happened?" Lysara asked quietly. "The humans, they have changed us. They have shown a way to grow, to connect, to act with courage without fear. This is something my people have never known." Alex smiled faintly. "I understand. Humans often underestimate the effect we have. We act, we share, we connect, and change follows naturally. Sometimes it takes time for others to see, but it always spreads." Lysara felt a surge of hope. She realized that the galaxy itself could change, not through war, conquest, or force, but through understanding, trust, and courage. Humans had begun a quiet revolution, one that would ripple outward to influence countless civilizations. In the following days, Lysara spoke publicly at a station assembly. She shared her experiences, recounting the lessons she had learned from the humans. She spoke of trust, courage, and honest communication. The younger Ithurians listened with wide eyes, inspired by her words. Some elders remained cautious, but many nodded thoughtfully, recognizing the truth in her observations. Alex watched from the back of the room, quietly observing. He did not speak, did not demand attention, yet his presence reinforced the message. Humans acted by example, not by force, and that example was more powerful than any argument. Over time, the Ithurian station became a model of collaboration. The lessons of the humans spread to other parts of the civilization. The younger generation embraced the ideas of trust, openness, and initiative. Conflicts were resolved more efficiently, cooperation increased, and the culture gradually shifted toward balance, maintaining tradition while embracing connection. Lysara reflected on the journey she had undertaken. One simple phrase, "You're beautiful," had opened her mind to possibilities she had never considered. One human's honesty and courage had sparked change that began with her but could extend across the galaxy. She understood now that transformation did not always require confrontation or rebellion. Sometimes, it required simply showing what was possible and trusting that others would see the value in it. Alex joined her on the observation deck, and they watched the stars together in quiet reflection. The station hummed around them, alive with movement and energy, a testament to the power of connection and courage. "Your people have a gift," Lysara said softly. "Not just technology, not just knowledge, but the ability to inspire without force. You change the world by being human," Alex smiled. "That is what we have always hoped, to show that honesty, trust, and courage can be stronger than fear and control. To remind the galaxy that connection is power." Lysara felt a deep sense of gratitude and understanding. She knew that the galaxy would never be the same. One simple human, one honest word, and a willingness to act with integrity had set in motion a transformation that could last for generations. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, silent witnesses to the quiet revolution taking place. Lysara and Alex stood side by side, recognizing that the universe was no longer a place defined only by rules and hierarchy. It was a place of possibility, shaped by courage, trust, and connection. And as the station hummed with life and energy, Lysara knew that humanity had changed everything, not through domination or command, but through the quiet power of being true to oneself and true to others. The galaxy had begun to listen, and it would never be the same again. The future was uncertain, vast, and full of challenges. Yet for the first time, Lysara felt hope. She understood that the journey of connection, trust, and courage was just beginning, and that humans had shown the way. He said, "You're beautiful," and the alien woman realized everything had changed.